Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports.
When it comes to
Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
This one's special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
And this is a real program. It's not fake. This is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football, this is a really good place to be.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
Happy Thursday morning, Bryan, College Station. Welcome to TexAgs Live. I'm Ryan Brauninger. It's the B-team version yet again. I don't know David Nuno. First of all, we have some, I've got some bones to pick here this morning with Mr. Senor Nuno.
Pick your bones.
Not yet. I got to do we got to do the NASCAR thing. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers inside the Rollo Insurance Studios, where we usually be, Olin, the Holistic Planning Cool Zone. You know what you can do with holistic planning?
Well, you can do a lot of things. You know, they'll help you with investments. They'll help you with your taxes. They're just coming up here pretty soon. I know the IRS is on my back. And
oh, you make enough money for the IRS to even notice who you are.
And I have the IOU to the IRS. And then they'll help you with estate planning. But most of all, or maybe the sexiest thing of all, is the investments. They'll help you out if you want to invest. They'll broker a deal for you to invest in professional sports.
It's almost like you've done this before. Go to investinprosports.com if you want to get involved today. Caitlin Thorne, good morning.
Morning.
In the Angry Elephant News and Social Center.
Any relation to the, no, it's Torn, right? You said
I said Thorne. Sorry.
Yeah, Torn.
Torn, yes.
Yeah. I say, wait. She's not related to
I'm trying to, I got roses on my mind.
Roses on your mind?
Yes,
Why's that?
because I'm going on vacation on Sunday.
Oh,
so I'm full of good thoughts and good positive energy this morning. And I'll walk in and sit down and try to get ready and prep for the show.
Yeah.
And David has got a pigsty. What's happened here?
Well, what's the problem?
Clutter. Listen. Okay. Clutter.
Let me move my stuff to one side of
Can
this.
I finish? Clutter begets clutter. Right?
Okay.
If you got clutter around you, you're gonna have a cluttered brain. The trash ain't been taken out since Notre Dame week. And now we're at national championship on Monday. Just tighten it up back here. I don't want to be the accountability booster in this place. I'm not that guy. I don't want to be that guy. Okay? So, and also, I got a bone to pick with Mr. Zane back there.
But you're picking bones all over the place.
I told you I had bones to pick. Listen, this
my bones.
This guy walks in and he knows that if you plant one little baby tiny seed in this East Texas brain, and then he just walks away. Huh?
He said, what do you
got? I got a Southeast Texas brain. Much more refined.
No, yeah, way less of the refineries.
Yeah, way less smooth. Right. And Richard comes in here and he starts pecking at you with the stuff that he knows is going to fire you up.
Because he's a pecker.
Yeah. Richard knows how to peck. And he leaves you with whenever you go and people don't understand it. First of all, we had this conversation yesterday in the back. Yesterday that if we had to run a poll from our social medias or through the website, Richard's walked in here to eat a banana right in front of Olin's face. We're off to a flying start this morning. If we had a poll to determine who the most popular TexAgs personality would be, we ran it on social medias, we ran it on the site, you would win in a massive landslide.
You think?
Oh,
well, I
can't tell you.
Old people like me.
Well, that's for sure. But I can't tell you how many times, and just whether we're having a TexAgs function, I'm at Bluebell Park, I'm at Kyle Field, whatever, in Houston doing recruiting stuff, I get more people that come and ask me about you than I do about Billy. And I'm like, why does everybody want to know all this stuff about Olin? He's just a bumpkin.
Yeah, I am. Because they want to know what I say off the air.
Well, that's true. And that goes back to my bone I had to pick with Richard before you.
All right. What's your bone with?
Well, he came in here and he started you down these two topics that you've already pushed the limit a little bit this morning, not quite like you did last time I hosted, but he comes in here and starts hitting you with the fringe of some topics that now I know that you've got some political stuff already brewing in here.
Yeah.
And then some religious stuff already brewing in here. So I've got to tread carefully.
I have religious stuff with me all the time.
Well, I think to a certain level we all should.
I have the Lord in my heart.
There you go. Praise Jesus.
Yeah.
Praise God.
Yeah.
And Richard started down a path this morning that we are not going to go down. But if you want to interact with us, the show, Miss Torn over there in the Angry Elephant News and Social Center, 979-693-1150, 979-693-1150. This is the Go Hour presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Maroon never looks so good as it does with Maroon U. And we want to welcome into the show the guy pulling the strings back there, Mr. Nick Savage, and a fresh crop of interns. Good morning, Nick.
Howdy, good morning, y'all. Yeah, it's a full house back here. I think this is like the most people we've had in here for a show, and they're getting the full Olin Buchanan experience, and I love it. I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, we're 6 minutes in this morning, Nick, so it's going to be a long 2 days for you pulling the strings on this thing with on the B team.
Bronny,
you put two East Texas guys together.
I'm not from East Texas. Stop.
You're from Southeast
Texas. There's a clear delineation.
Yeah,
there's
the people from East Texas looks down geographically and literally on Southeast Texas.
Geographically. For sure, you have to look down on the map. It's because it's more southern. But yeah, we just have a little bit more flair to us. We got a little bit more pizzazz. We're a little bit more cultured.
Culture.
Yeah.
In Southeast Texas, yeah. Whenever I want to experience culture, I head down to Port Arthur.
Well, you can. We'll take you to the seawall.
Down to Bridge City.
Bridge City. You got to take a bridge to get in and out.
Hence the name.
Whenever I was growing up, I guess it was before I turned 16.
Nick.
What? Why are you apologizing?
Because we're talking to Nick, and now you're taking that stroll down memory lane out. And
nobody wants to hear
from me. You never do this. You never take strolls down memory lane.
Only when asked.
We've had a lot of conversations in that foyer that never started with. Let me tell you about this girl I dated one time.
Few me about this. Tell me where you're going with this.
Well, no, when I was growing up in Southeast Texas, it was probably right before I got my driver's license, so that a few years before me. But the big deal was when you got your driver's license, driving to Bridge City was a big deal because at that time there was only the Rainbow Bridge to get to Bridge City.
Dogs die and stuff?
No.
Oh.
What are you talking about?
The Rainbow Bridge. When your dog dies, they say he goes over the Rainbow Bridge.
I'd never heard that.
Really?
No.
You heard that, Torn?
But at one point, this bridge was, and I don't know if it still holds.
Heard it.
I don't know if it still holds the title.
And Sugarland.
I get it. Sugarland.
Well, is it Kaylin?
We have a bunch of Kayleys.
There's Kaylin, Kaylee, Callie.
See, that's what I'm talking about. I can't even get through a story.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hijack.
See, this is what your brain's done.
Rainbow Bridge.
This is Richard's fault.
Rainbow Bridge.
Right. Rainbow Bridge, at the time, I think was the tallest bridge in the South.
Huh.
And it was one lane each way to get into Bridge City. So once you got your driver's license, going over the Rainbow Bridge was like your parents really didn't want you to do it because it was so high and there was traffic going different directions one lane. That's my Bridge City story.
Okay. You would have thought that, all that culture down in Southeast Texas, someone would have thought, why don't we make this, 4 lanes so there's 2 lanes going each way?
Well, that was a lot. They have now built an entire new bridge.
Yeah, because they finally figured it out.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people jump off that bridge.
Culture. Because they live in Southeast Texas.
Oh, it's a Thursday morning on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. I guess we'll get into some sports stuff. Nederland. Hayden Hefner, Aggie basketball. What a segue. We were talking about this before the show started, and 2-2 in the league, certainly that's no sin, given the schedule. But it feels like there's this blanket of, first of all, I do want to give credit to the team. They're playing hard.
Mm-hmm.
They're in games, and they're undermanned.
Yes,
right?
all those things are true.
And it's good to see, and that's clearly a sign of what Buzz has built. But
Teams take on the personality of their coach, and this team definitely has.
But there's like this blanket statement that everybody's using that if Wade were back, A&M would have beat Alabama. If Wade were back, A&M would have beat Kentucky. I just don't know that I'm ready to go there yet. Could they have? It would have certainly increased their opportunities and chances to win the game. But I'm more concerned about OB, and tell me, and this is, you do this with me on baseball topics sometimes, tell me why I shouldn't be concerned about the rebounding.
Well, because, all right, you're a baseball guy, and you're the team you're going to be covering is probably going to average between 8 and 10 runs a game. But they're not always going to score 8 to 10 runs. There's going to be some games where they might even get shut out. There's going to be some games where they might get 1 or 2 runs, because over the course of a long season, there are peaks and valleys, and that includes rebound. Look, I think this team's going to rebound. They're going to rebound more often than they don't. More often than not, they're going to have the advantage on the boards, but it's not going to be every single night. Now, when they get Wade back, I don't know, that might actually help the rebounding. And just in terms of the shot selection, maybe changes and you're in better position, all those things. But they're going to rebound. My biggest concern is, can they score? And when you get Wade Taylor back, I still don't think that makes you an offensive juggernaut like you see at Alabama or Kentucky. But I think what it does is Wade does make you a more dangerous offensive team. Plus, if Wade was in the game against Alabama, they don't miss 20 free throws.
That's another question is like, yeah, sure, he increases and improves your free throw percentage, but that was my next question to you. Okay, you give me reason not to worry about the rebounding. Why shouldn't I worry about the free throw shooting? Because, baseball analogy again, and I brought this up to Richard yesterday in the back. Part of what has made Buzz successful at Texas A&M is his team's ability to get to the line, and how many times have they won the game at the charity stripe? If a lot of times it feels like they're getting 15, 18, 20 points at the free throw line.
Yeah.
To me, and this is no different than Texas A&M baseball, the walks that they accumulate is part of their offense. So this team, basketball, is getting to the free throw line, and they're really struggling, and it's affecting their win-loss. It's like A&M baseball getting to 3-2 counts, and then they swing at ball 4 a bunch.
Well, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say, oh, no, that free throw shooting is going to take care of itself. We've seen this over the course of the year. They're not necessarily always a bad free throw shooting team, but they're erratic. But when their best is when Wade's out there, because Wade is a 90% free throw shooter, and because the ball's in his hands the most, and he takes most of the shots, he's probably going to get the most free throws. And I've said it before, I've said it 100 times. This is not just a funny line or trying to be a clever line. This is statistically proven. Wade at the free throw line for A&M is more guaranteed than an A&M layup, because A&M misses more layups than Wade misses free throws. So when you have when free throws being a big part of the game, a big part of that has always been because you put the ball in Wade's hands, and Wade is exceptional at drawing fouls too. So yes, I think that when Wade gets back, and hopefully that'll be sooner rather than later, that you'll see more of what this team really is. They won't be just a hard-working team that won't go away and that looks to get hot at the right time. They'll be a more consistent team.
Big one coming up on Saturday with LSU coming in. We're going to get to a lot of that preview tomorrow. We've got Logan Lee and Aaron Torres on the show in the 9 o'clock hour. So we're going to talk quite a bit of hoops today before the fan show comes in, and we'll probably open it up for those guys in the 10 o'clock hour. Back to what we were discussing with concerns, and it's not really even a concern of mine, but I go back and I look at what A&M has done so far, and the resume is still very, very strong, but how much better or how important was that comeback in Norman now.
Well, huge.
Because they got blasted last night by Texas. 9 o'clock start time. Did you see that?
Yeah, I turned it on, so now he's staying up.
Yeah, and I saw Texas start pulling away early. I turned it off and went to bed. But they got blasted last night at home. They're winless in conference play, and you were down by 18, and they could not miss.
Mm-hmm.
And some heroics from Zurich Phelps gets you back into the game. You end up getting out of there like a thief in the night, right?
Mm-hmm.
You stole a win. And it has, to me, that so far this season is in terms of outlook and trajectory, it's the biggest. I know it's the biggest win so far in conference because they've only had 2, but I think it's one of the turning points of the season so far.
Huge win. Again, you did it without Wade. We've talked about this, David and I, and other people say this, that over the course of an 18-game regular season, conference season, you're probably going to have 2 games where you play way over your head and probably play 2 games where you're way under your ability and you are in between. Mm-hmm. I think, especially if you look at the Godine kid, that was a game where Oklahoma maybe played over its head and you still beat them. So I'm not too concerned. You're not supposed to beat Kentucky on the road. If you do, and you're capable of doing, that's great. But Kentucky is undefeated at home this year. You went out there and without your best player, and you still made it reasonably competitive.
Both of those losses to Alabama and Kentucky, there were points in the game where you're going, like this lead could get out to 20, and you managed to keep it within reason.
Right.
And at the end, the scoreline looks, they were competitive, but there was I remember I think I texted Luke during the Bama game. I'm like, this could get ugly. Because they always felt like they were 1 stop and 1-3 away from really breaking the game open. And that's to A&M's credit. They didn't let them do that.
That's their tenacity.
Yeah,
they did it at Oklahoma.
Sure.
And
and probably they were able to come back against Oklahoma because they don't have the talent on the floor that Bama and Kentucky do. When you play that way, and it's not that way, when you play without Wade, and it certainly limits some of your offensive success, going up against the teams that are elite talent, it's going to make that job a lot tougher.
You got 2 losses. One was against a team that a lot of people have picked to win the national championship in Alabama, and it was they were at the time ranked 5th. I don't know what they're ranked now. And then another one was on the road against a team that was ranked 8th.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's no saying what they've done.
And you did it without your best player, and they were both reasonably, or one of them very competitive. The other reason, there's no reason at this point, basketball-wise, to panic. None at all. I'm not saying you are, but I think there are some out there.
When we come back, a lot more to get to here as we roll right along on a Thursday morning. You're listening to TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. 8:23 on a Thursday morning. This is TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Inside the Rollo Insurance Studios, I'm Ryan Brauninger. He's Olin Buchanan. It's the B-team version of TexAgs Live. David out today and tomorrow, and Monday and Tuesday. I'm in the host chair throughout the remainder of this week. I think Richard, Olin has got a new nickname for Richard. He will be hosting on Monday and Tuesday. I will let you guys talk about his.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, that should be a lot of fun. I won't listen from beautiful St. Thomas, but I may have to go back there's some highlights. So
can you see Brauninger walking up and down the beach and St. Thomas in his Speedo?
Oh, not that, but I sure can see
my copper tone all over him. He's all glistening.
I'm going to look like a chocolate chip cookie when I come back.
Yeah, one of those big ones.
That's right. Yeah, double.
You might be the whole roll of dough.
Double doozy.
Well, you're a double doozy, all right.
Remember? Were you a big Great American Cookie Company guy?
If someone bought it, I'd certainly eat it.
They were delicious. That was when I was growing up.
I think I got one for my birthday one time.
Yeah, of course, they're great.
Because Irma didn't feel like baking a cake because that would have been too much work. So she just went and got a cookie cake.
If somebody brought a cookie cake up here, and I'm trying to lose weight. I've been doing pretty good for about a week and a half now.
Yeah.
But if somebody brought a cookie cake up here, it's impossible for me. I'll have to sit there and just stare at it to avoid eating it. I just look at it, and it's a battle of wills for me not to cut the icing out and eat those pieces. It's so good.
I like it.
Every person that's listening to this, that's in this room, that's in that back room, they know cookie cakes are impossible not to eat. They're delicious.
They are delicious.
And my mother used to go walking at Central Mall, which it was on the
Bridge City?
No,
over the Rainbow Bridge?
It was between Nederland and Port Arthur. It's like right on I guess it's technically Port Arthur, but she would go walking laps every day. That's what I guess women did in the 90s. They walked laps in the mall.
I think they still do.
Do they? Okay. Yeah. I don't go to the mall anymore. But when she got done, if I was well behaved after she got done walking the mall, I got to get me a double doozy cookie.
Double doozy.
And that made my day.
Is that the one with some
it's got
cream filling in between?
Oh, yeah. I'm telling you, you put that thing on the top of your head, your tongue will beat your brains out.
Wait, you're going to put the...
I said, if you put it on the top of your head, your tongue would beat your brains out trying to get to it. You heard of slap your mama?
I've heard it. I've never done it.
Beat her to death good.
Yeah.
That's how good that is. What were we talking about before you started on this stuff?
Well, I started it.
You did. You started everything this morning. I did want to talk about, our infamous tweeter at this company, Luke Evangelist. Guy loves to hit send. But he did make some points about Pharrell Payne and his usage rate. With Wade out, I think the best scoring option, and I don't know when the last time you could say this about an Aggie basketball team, maybe with Josh Nebo, but the best scoring option for the Aggies right now seems like it is going to be number 21 in the paint.
I think he's shooting something, just in the last couple of games, something like 70%.
I think it's higher than that.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So, I'd be looking for him. And there was one play, they don't hit many three-pointers, but there was one play, I think it was against Kentucky, where they got the ball into him. Defense collapsed out. He made the right choice, passed it out. I can't remember who caught it. And they hit a three.
It might have been Solo.
Might have been Solo.
I just think working the ball, again, when you don't have a focal point of your offense, and I'm going to ask Logan, I'm going to ask Aaron Torres, but Logan clearly knows he's forgotten more about basketball than me and you know. But it just seems like to me that the ball gets stuck with the point guard right now quite a bit. And maybe running the offense through Pharrell as long as Wade's out. Make sure he's getting a touch, maybe even early in the shot clock. Get him a touch and let the offense work through the low post.
But you know what? Here's the deal, though. And I agree with all that in theory. But now we just talked about Pharrell shooting maybe 80% now. So now every team that they face knows it. And so now you're going to see your opponent start trying to take him away.
Yeah, but has he ever – I don't think that he's been a focal point yet.
I know. But
where they just keep throwing it to him and throwing it to him.
I think you're going to see teams be ready for Pharrell Payne when he may still shoot 50%. So, yeah, great. I'll take that.
He's improved from the foul line, too.
He has. That's what's crazy is that right now, your most reliable free throw shooter is a guy that was like a 52% free throw shooter career-wise until this year. He's obviously worked hard on it.
And I think again, novice basketball mind here, but I'm watching the game, and it seems like when A&M has made a basket in these last 2 ball games against Alabama and Kentucky, it seems like there's something in those scouting reports that says get the ball out of the net, get it up the floor quickly. Kentucky it was almost like watching an NBA game as fast as they were getting the ball out of the net and up the floor.
But I think that's what they do all the time, though.
Against A&M?
Well, I mean, I think it's what they do against everybody. They try to push tempo.
You could be right. I haven't watched enough Kentucky, but I just noticed it more against Alabama and Kentucky how fast those teams were getting up the floor.
Well, part
it
of
could
it
be a
is
different level of athlete.
A&M plays such good defense, and I know they're a little bit different. And Logan will tell you how in the way they play defense. But maybe it is A&M. You're going to push just a little more because you want to get into your offense before they set their defense.
Yes. And how many times have we seen even A&M run that 3/4 court pressure to try to suck some life out of the shot clock, and so they get into their offense later. So maybe that's what they're doing to avoid that. Again, this is stuff that we're going to ask an actual basketball expert in Logan Lee at the top of the 9:00 hour. Going forward, Olin, this first 4-game stretch, it was looked at going into the season of this first 4-game stretch of SEC play as just weather the storm. I think obviously the record would indicate they've weathered the storm, but whenever you remove Wade Taylor from 3 of those 4 games, and really 3.5 of those 4, right? He didn't play much against Texas. He was in and out of the lineup. I think you'd have to give them more credit than just weathering the storm. Now, nobody cares. Weathering the storm doesn't count in wins and losses. Right? That's what's going to determine your seed, what your projections going into the postseason are. But it has been they've done a commendable job through these first 4 games. And now you're getting into a stretch, I believe, where even without Wade, you can scratch a few wins.
Well, I mean, they got LSU who's better than they were last year. And actually, I think they won here last year. I think Callie pointed out that I was mistaken. A&M scored 21 points in the second half last year. They were terrible against LSU and lost. LSU was barely a 500 team last season. They're better. LSU, I'm not saying they're great by any means. They're probably their second division team in the SEC, but they're better than they were last year. And A&M should win, but I don't think it's look, with Wade out, I don't think you don't do this anyway in the SEC, but you don't circle anyway. So, okay, that's a W. You're going to have to go out. You're going to have to, for sure. You're going to have to play pretty well. You're going at home. And because then the next game, you're on the road at Ole Miss. It's not easy.
I know.
Didn't Ole Miss just beat Alabama?
Yes, on the road. Yeah. And I thought until that win, I thought their record, I was like, okay, Ole Miss is fool's gold. But you go in there and you win at Alabama in their barn, I think Ole Miss is definitely, so they're not ranked number 21. They're probably going to bump into the top 15 by the time you play them.
Yeah, they're good. That coach. I mean, you say what you want to about him.
Seems like they got a couple of coaches over there. People like, say what you want to about him, but he wins games.
Wins games, man.
All right. When we come back, we will probably switch gears and go a little bit of football. I know Nick has been grinding on some brand new, fresh graphics, Nick. We're going to give you a chance to roll some of those. We'll look ahead.
He's a grinder.
We'll look ahead to – go ahead, Nick.
I was about to say thank you, but then I figured out what he meant by that. So
what do I mean by he's a grinder?
You know what? I bet I bet he doesn't. I bet he didn't mean anything bad.
He who grinds would therefore be a grinder.
And he who pecks
would therefore be Richard
When we
Zane.
come back, a lot more on the Go Hour at TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. OB, how much have you paid attention to what Texas A&M has done in the transfer portal?
I've paid it.
Are you one of the now, let's look at this because I'm interested.
Okay.
Are you one of the now 3,810,000 views on our transfer portal thread?
I have viewed it. Yes, I have.
So how interested are you in what, or how much have you kept up with it? And what do you think of the job they've done? Because I have opinions, but I cover this stuff.
Well, what I really like is, obviously like everybody else, what they've done with the wide receivers and the corners. Okay. They've addressed two areas of concern. I think already they're better at receiving in the receiving room than they were.
Oh, you had more concerns at corner than other positions?
Well, up until the bowl game, I had more concerns at receiver than anything.
But corner was your second?
Well, actually, yeah, I'm concerned about corner, but look, what I've been.
I was more concerned about defensive line and tight end.
The defensive line is a concern. In fact, I think coming into tight end, I'm not too worried about. I'm not too worried about tight end.
Well, when you had two guys leave and via the eligibility for Trey Watson and Shane Calhoun, and then Donovan Green and Jaden Platt both leave to the transfer portal.
But were you going to play those guys anyway?
Well, what I'm saying is it was just from a number standpoint, it was light. You only returned Theo.
Yeah, I know, but you can always go out and you're going to bring somebody in and recruiting, and then you're going to get somebody in. What I'm saying is, are you going to get significantly better or significantly worse at tight end? I don't think so. I mean, you had some guys that were serviceable players, but there were no stars at tight end. And hell, I just wish when they decide to go to a short running offense, don't even have a tight end in there. Put another lineman.
Well, they got plenty of those.
Put another lineman in it at that tight end position.
Well, tomorrow this is so interesting because A&M is going to be hosting a transfer portal visitor this weekend in Harrison Wallace.
Tell me about him.
He's wide receiver at Penn State. He was the number one wide receiver. He wasn't their number one pass catcher. Obviously, their tight end had an incredible season. And
really
Tyler Warren, he's going to the NFL, had over 1,000 yards. But Harrison Wallace was over 700 yards, averaged over 15 a catch, I believe, this year. 4 touchdowns, had his best game in week 1 against West Virginia, but also had some nice games throughout the course of the season. What's interesting here is the timing of the visit. Friday, tomorrow, is supposed to be the last day to add drop classes at Texas A&M. Clearly, this kid's coming in on a visit on Saturday. I'm guessing that there is some exceptions being made for teams that were in the playoff that go into the transfer portal. And I'm not just talking about exceptions being made athletically. Clearly, there's going to have to be academic exceptions made because he would be, if he chooses A&M or perhaps any of the other schools that he's being recruited by, I would have imagined that a lot, unless they're on the quarter system, a lot of schools have started back by now. So everybody's going to be running up against academic deadlines with players leaving, returning, coming in, whatever. My original point for all that was we still haven't heard an official word from Trey Zune. And tomorrow would be the last day to add drop. I think yesterday was the last day for him to declare for the draft. Nick, did we ever get clarification on that? I was in yesterday, and
I think I said. Say that again, Callie. Yesterday was the deadline, but February 7th is the last day to opt out if you are
to withdraw.
Yeah,
so Quinn Ewers.
So you were right about that, Bronny.
Okay.
Yesterday was the deadline.
So, I mean, all signs are pointing to you're going to get your left tackle back into what I started down the offensive line rows because you were talking about putting an offensive lineman in there. They should have plenty of them and plenty of capable ones because that should be your. I mean, without question, I think you're going to look at this 2025 Texas A&M football team and say, what's the strength? Offensive line.
Yeah, I think that's, let's hope so.
And what an incredible, if that's true, and I think it will be, what an incredible turnaround by Adam Cushing in
without
1 year.
Without a doubt. I thought it was an incredible turnaround last year.
Yes.
I just, like when on the goal line against Texas, not in, and at the 10, when they couldn't pick up that yard, both times the guy who made the tackle was the right defensive end coming in where tight end couldn't block him. Yeah. Put a damn tackle in there, somebody that can block him. How many times do you have to get exposed there? We say, okay, well, this is a mismatch, so let's put Fathery in there for this. You had time to think about it. I saw one team, I don't know if it's Penn State or Texas, that put a lineman at the tight end position and then brought him in motion. There's a guy with a 70 number coming in motion, and then they ran inside with that lineman coming in motion, leading the way. I mean, how about get creative? Come up with somebody. When you can't just line up and push somebody off the ball, do something freaking different.
Well, the tight end position, they did flip it. So they got 2 in the transfer portal.
And I've heard really good things about the guy from Nebraska, even though he doesn't have huge.
Yeah, he's a supremely athletic kid.
Doesn't have huge numbers receiving, but.
And then we'll see what happens with Keati Armstrong from Jasper. But everybody, he was one of the talks of that Navy All-American Bowl, just his combination of just raw size, athleticism, strength, the whole thing.
Well,
he's got a long way to go.
I thought Donovan Green was good as a freshman in the role that they had for him.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm really worried about the safety position. Okay. And I'm really worried about the run defense.
Well, safety will depend on, I think, development of players. Mm-hmm. Can Marcus Ratcliffe get better? I liked what Dalton Brooks did this year.
Dalton Brooks showed me that, he has something to build with. I thought, quite frankly, Bryce Anderson was disappointing.
Miles Davis, is a kid that redshirted we don't know anything about. And then the early returns on this Rashad Johnson kid that they signed out of Florida who was committed to Georgia, he's getting a lot of Antonio Johnson comparisons, just physically how he looks early on. So could that be an impact? I think you never want a bunch of true freshmen playing, but if you have a couple, I think that's okay. I'm not as worried about the secondary as you. I was really concerned going into the portal about wide receiver and defensive line. And I think they've done a great job of addressing both. I think they could still add one more at each position.
Where's the pass rush next year going to come from?
Well, I would say Cassius Howell, Ryland Kennedy, Marco Jones, I'd start there. Deion Hayes, TJ Searcy. TJ Searcy's more, I think, going to play kind of that Shamar Turner role. He's a big dude, real big dude. But Deion Hayes was really productive, and he was on his way to having a fantastic year at Colorado last year before his knee injury. But is there anything, Sam Mpemba out of Georgia, but was there any name that I was going to say that was going to make you feel better?
Not really.
Okay, so then why'd you ask the question?
It always
it's a loaded question.
It always has to come down to this, though.
You could ask it, and I'll say this. There was a lot of years when Terry Price was a defensive ends coach here. We go, where's the pass rush coming from? And they'd find a pass rush. So he was developing players.
Oh, yeah. Look, I remember Landon Durham. You'd lost Miles, and, what are we going to do? Well, Landon Durham came up.
Remember a kid named Jarrett Johnson?
Yeah.
Played late in his career and ended up having a pretty solid senior season.
So
Julian Obioha, these guys that were.
Well, Julian Obioha was never a pass rusher.
Right, but they played well on the edge. And like those defensive lines, TP was good at developing guys. This can't be, and Coach Elko has said, they still want to be a developmental program. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
you got to develop them.
Those guys got to get better.
Linebackers.
I thought Cassius Howell played well toward the end of the year.
He did. Cassius, but last year you had Cassius Howell and several other people. You had Shabar Stewart. You had Nick Scorton. You had a bunch of people. Next year,
and the pass rush laying down the stretch for sure.
Sure. And so next year you got one. Because until Ryland Kennedy makes that tackle and doesn't let Quinn Ewers get away from him, then I have to wonder, can you get there and finish?
Sure. It's a legit concern, but they did bring in guys to try to answer some of those questions at the position.
Oh, I'm not saying they're not trying.
But I think you're going to have to, Solomon Williams. That's another redshirt freshman. Like some of these guys, that didn't play a lot last year, or really, we only saw Solomon Williams in the bowl game, and he flashed a little bit. We just don't know. The answer is probably incomplete on some of these. Right?
Absolutely.
So they're going to have to coach them. They're going to have to develop them. But that's what coaching is. When we come back, we'll close the Go Hour. I got a couple more questions for OB. On the football side, we're not going to get into the college football playoff final. We're going to talk about that a lot tomorrow, Notre Dame and Ohio State on Monday. But still, closing the Go Hour. When we return, you're going to the Hoops Hardwood in the 9 o'clock hour. You're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, a few more minutes left in the Go Hour. TexAgs Live, a B-team version. Ryan Brauninger in the host chair, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers inside the Rollo Insurance Studio. Obi, what you got the rest of the day today?
Well, I may be writing something about my concerns about defense, and I'm also looking up every team on A&M schedule that matters. I don't worry about the nobody teams like Samford.
Don't you say McNeese in that.
Or McNeese. They don't play McNeese this year.
I know.
So I'm looking at
new coach in Lake Charles.
I'm putting it together what they've lost from players going to the early to the NFL, players leaving in the portal, and then players that just exhausted their eligibility. And
so you're looking at outgoing players, not
players.
incoming or
and
retaining players.
And I'll probably look at the retaining players. For instance, do you know LSU has? I think they got 3 starters coming back on. Well, maybe as many as 5. Because I'll say if you start at least half the games, you're a returning starter. I'll give them that. So LSU probably has maybe 5 starters back on.
Yeah, there's a reason why they had to go so aggressive in the portal. But I would also add to that: do these teams return a quarterback? Because, and if they don't, who is their guy?
You know what's going to be really interesting to see who's Notre Dame's quarterback next year,
or who's Alabama's quarterback.
Well, I think they're probably taking what's his name, Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson, yeah.
He's been there a while, hadn't played. Some of these teams that, Oregon's going to go to Dante Moore, who transferred in. Miami's going to Carson Beck, who transferred in. There's some really I think the quarterback position in college football early on looks more interesting to me than it did last year.
Yeah, it's funny how
Arch Manning takes over at Texas. What is he the savior?
To me, that's hilarious. The way everybody was trying to at Texas was so ready to push Quinn Ewers out. Man, the guy's gotten you to the playoffs 2 years in a row, and we don't want him. We want the next guy. It reminded me because you always want the next guy. It reminded me when I think the guy's name was Brick Haley. Was a defensive line coach at LSU, I think. He became available.
Yeah.
And we had people on our boards, you got to hire him. Get rid of Terry Price. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, we were talking about that transfer portal tracker thread earlier.
Yeah.
There was a certain receiver from the University of Texas that went into the portal.
Yeah.
Everybody was staring that A&M had to get him because he was an
about Cook?
Jonte Cook. And I went back and read through some of the replies whenever he went in and people talking about him. He upgrades the position. He's more athletic than all this kind of stuff. There was a reason why A&M never even gave it a sniff.
Well, has he landed anywhere yet?
Well, he's at Washington and got kicked off yesterday.
Right.
So he's there for 2 weeks and no longer in Seattle. So there's a reason why these coaches, I promise you, no matter what you think they know more. I will agree with that. Especially with this coach. I'm more confident in that with this coaching staff. Like they're doing their homework. They're exhausting every avenue they can to get information.
I will say that I have complete confidence in Mike Elko.
That's a great way to cut it. Positive. You didn't get us in too much trouble. We peaked early, which is one of the
I'm a peaker.
Shout out Gary Guest and Brian. His life motto was don't peak too early.
Don't peak too early.
He's in his 60s now, so don't peak too early, OB.
All right. Well,
all right. We'll be back
work is done
on the
here.
other side. Logan Lee, we're going to the hardwood. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, we're rolling right along on a Thursday morning. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. I'm Ryan Brauninger in the host chair, B-team version of TexAgs Live today and tomorrow. Then Monday and Tuesday, Richard will be your host. David back next week. And we welcome in, and we kind of, let's turn the page a little bit. We've talked a little bit of hoops, but we welcome in our basketball savant and a guy that we fired a long time ago that just can't quit.
I'll leave right now if you want me to.
No,
good luck with this segment, B-teamer.
I've already claimed that I don't know anything about basketball. So I know that when I'm driving around and I have the sports radio on and I hear people talk about baseball, and I'm like, man, these people really don't know what they're talking about. And I'm always scared I'm going to be that guy with basketball. So like I feel like every time I have a basketball take, I'm like, we're going to have an expert in here. I could be completely wrong.
I don't know. I feel like that's how I am too. So take it for what it's worth.
Okay, well, let's start with this. I made a couple of things that we talked about in the Go Hour with Olin with this basketball team right now was without Wade, it feels like to me watching them that the ball is getting stuck with the point guard too often.
You're absolutely correct. Good take.
Okay, thank you.
Keep speaking. But it's kind of weird, though, that is how it flows. Because Wade takes a lot of shots.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think he takes some ill-advised shots. But with him not on the court, you see how the defense changes and the way that they guard this team. I mean, you take, for example, against Kentucky. Kentucky had 19 assists. A&M had 4.
Yeah.
4 assists the entire game.
That's
one every 10 minutes.
That was kind of that was the crux of me thinking that the ball's getting stuck, because if the ball's moving, even on a bad night, you're going to get more than 4 dimes like that.
But at the same time, even on a bad night, you should shoot better than 7 for 30 from the 3-point line. And they shot less than 40% from the field, less than 25% from the 3-point line. It was not a good game for A&M. And yet, they didn't get absolutely destroyed.
Oh, they hung around.
They hung around there.
It's a credit to their tenacity.
Absolutely. They fight.
Yeah.
And they scrap, and they made it hard for Kentucky. Now, at the end of the day, I think Kentucky's size, Kentucky's athletic ability, and the fact that they had a point guard on the floor, they had that floor general that was just directing through the chaos that A&M's defense set up, is what set them apart.
Another observation that I had was it just seemed like against Bama and against Kentucky, and maybe Oklahoma was doing it a little bit too. I think Oklahoma was more of a product. They shot, that's the best they're going to shoot the entire year. But against Bama and against Kentucky, it seemed like there was an emphasis from those sides saying, if A&M makes a basket, get the ball out of the net and up the floor before they can get set.
One, that's how both of those teams play.
Okay.
It wasn't just that. It wasn't just that's against A&M. 2, those are both top 10 teams.
Yeah.
So it's not like A&M was favored to win by 15 or even by 5. They weren't.
I didn't know if it was a product of that's how they play, because I don't watch them enough.
That's how they play predominantly. But you are going to see that more against Texas A&M, because when A&M is at its best, they're in that 1-2-2, 3-quarter court. Let's just slow you down, get them out of rhythm.
Eat shot clock, yeah.
They're not really trying to steal the ball. Now, if they get a steal, great, but they're not. What they're trying to do is get it down to 22 seconds on the shot clock, and then they rush back in. They drop it, whether they're dropping back into zone or man, and then the opponent has to figure out, okay, now we're going to set up, and instead of starting the play at 27 seconds, they're starting to play at 17 seconds. Mm-hmm. And that's what A&M's defense does to all of its opponents. Now, they've kind of figured it out, get the ball out and go.
Mm-hmm.
So how does A&M adjust? Does A&M now, instead of doing a 1-2-2 3-quarter court, do they now, if they want to get into that trap, do they put a man directly on the ball?
Yeah.
And make it hard for them to pass it in so they can't get a quick pass in? Do they drop back to just a half court? Maybe it's a half court full trap.
Yeah.
How are they going to adjust to that?
And the question I would ask, if they decide to do that and they want to continue that pressure, is you're now a guard short. Do you run the risk of losing some legs You understand what I'm saying?
No, I get it.
It's like load management now is such a big deal in the NBA, right? In a college season, I think people forget that, but it's still a lot of games. And when you're down one guard in a team that, and we'll talk about this in a little bit too, is like maybe they need to start working through the post and Pharrell Payne. Absolutely. But for right now, it's and really for a lot of, me and Luke were going through all the rosters since 2000 because he was talking about where Pharrell Payne sits for front court players. And I was like, what's crazy is when you start making the list of best A&M basketball players over the last 25 years, it's a ton of backcourt guys, right? A ton of them. And it feels like that's kind of how Buzz's teams have been built, a lot of really good backcourt players. So, but when you lose one and you have those guys running ragged, like by February, into February, March, you may lose some legs. So I like that would be my devil's advocate if you're going to try to do that.
Here's the good news. If you lose one of those guys' legs, you can rest him because Wade is going to be a little more rested. Now, Wade has gotten to the point where his conditioning is going to be off.
That's what I was going to say. His fitness level is going to be down.
His conditioning is going to be off. So when he comes back, they may have to only play him
15,
18 minutes. Now, they could probably push him to 25, and he's going to be exhausted, and he'll be a little sore, and you don't know how his injury is going to react. But you're looking at probably a 20-minute game, and then you're going to work him in, and he's going to have to get there. It'll probably take 3 games.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think that's a stretch at all.
But he will have more energy towards the end of the year.
Do you think that it's been kind of a blanket statement from a lot of the fan base, and I understand it. Like, yeah, if Wade's on the floor against Bama, it's a different story. If Wade's on the floor against Kentucky, it's a different story. But I did see things that I'm like, well, even without Wade, like, and Olin says that the rebounding, in his opinion, over the last 2 games is more of a blip on the radar and an outlier than what he thinks is going to be happening going forward. But they've been out rebounded and Bama killed them on the glass.
Man, I don't know. The rebounding, Wade obviously doesn't bring individual rebounding numbers, but he pulls the defense further away from the basket, and he makes them focus on him more. So you're going to have one less rebounder going to the glass when he's on the court because they have to spot him. If he's 35 feet away from the basket, defender's got to be 33 feet away from the basket.
Sure.
That is one less rebounder they have to worry about. However, you're looking at, again, A&M just played 2 top 10 teams with guys that are bigger and more athletic. That's hard to. That's hard to combat.
There's part of it that is just that's Bama being, Bama and Kentucky's athletic profile being greater than yours. There's still that element to basketball and rebounding, but that was just one area where I'm going, man. That and the free throws. Like Wade will obviously help you there. Without question. 90% free throw shooter. Right. But there's still going to be other guys that get to the line. And the analogy that I made in the first hour was, I'm a baseball guy. A&M baseball, since Michael Early's been here, has used the walks as an offensive weapon. Buzz uses free throws as an offensive weapon. So my baseball analogy was they're getting to a lot of 3-2 counts and swinging at ball 4 and striking out. So they're still getting to the line, but to me, these kids are talented enough to shoot free throws at a higher clip. I wonder if it's like, is it a team confidence thing? It's contagious. When you miss a free throw, when you've had a couple of nights, a couple of games that you haven't been successful at the line, you go to that next game and you need to hit your first 3 or 4. Because if you miss one of those, the entire team, everybody on the bench goes like this. Here we go again. Yep.
I mean, they just take a deep breath. Your shoulders go down, your confidence goes down. Then you got to step to the line again. Man, okay, here it is. Let's see what happens. And it's all about confidence. We've seen them be really good free throw shooters in games. We've seen them be really poor free throw shooters in games. Which one is going to show up? Where is the confidence going to lie?
And I think that's one of the things that they've ridden as a team for the most part all year. Not free throw, just shooting percentage. Like they ride some highs and lows, man. And the Kentucky game was a perfect microcosm of that. They hit 7 threes in the first half. And to me, I understand it.
Then 0 for 12.
I know, but I understand you keep chucking it because without Wade and against that length and athleticism, shooting the ball over them, especially if you had some confidence, I was like, hey, I'm fine with him running it and running down the floor and throwing one up, even early in the shot clock. But it got like where they were losing confidence, they were getting worse and worse looks.
Look, I'm gonna put it in terms of what I know personally with the teams that I played on, and I am not trying to compare AC Law to Wade Taylor. That's not the comparison I'm making. But if you take AC Law off of our team, we'll fight and we'll play hard and we'll win some games, but we're not going to the Sweet 16. Mm-hmm. That's not what we're doing. You take Wade Taylor off of this team, they're going to fight, they're going to scrap, they're going to win some games, but they're not going to beat these top 10 teams.
So when you looked at the schedule coming out, and I guess I would say not even in the preseason, but when you looked at the schedule, let's say the 2 days before they played Texas, and you're going, okay, Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, Kentucky. At that time, Oklahoma looked like they were going to be a real problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were for A&M and Norman that night. But you're looking at it, and then when you're iffy on Wade, are you okay with how they've weathered the storm? It won't.
Absolutely.
To me, I am too. It's perfectly more than 2-2 is fine. What I don't, in the end, weathering the storm doesn't determine wins and losses. Like, you got to get Wade back healthy, for sure, and you got to start playing consistent basketball.
If they don't let Wade get healthy, it's going to be a nagging injury that he's going to be 70% at best the rest of the year, and you don't want a 70% Wade Taylor because that's not going to get you to your goals.
Sure.
That's not going to get you to the second weekend in the tournament. So you have to take your lumps now, if you have to, and deal with it. And give the other guys some reps that they normally wouldn't have, to give them a little experience, to give them a little understanding of what it takes. And then when Wade comes back, those guys have more experience, but it's easier because Wade's on the floor.
I've made the point that rally in Oklahoma is the biggest point of the season, like bigger than the Purdue win, I think. Because if you lose that game, you're on a 3-game skid with no Wade, and you got an LSU team coming in that you're better than, you should beat. But now Texas, they blasted Oklahoma on the road last night. We know they're talented. Maybe they found some confidence. Like, it just gets a lot more hairy if you don't make that comeback in Norman.
Purdue win was huge. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
Because that is the best that they have played in a complete game that I've seen them play. But against Oklahoma, it put the thought in everybody's mind of, hey, if Wade's out, we still got this.
Mm-hmm.
We can do this. Even if we're down, we can come back. Phelps got a huge confidence boost. Now he needs to lock in and make sure he's efficient, but that was a huge boost for him and the team. Now they know we can win. If Wade's not in there, we can still win. Now they've taken two tough losses, hard-fought losses, not beatdowns, just losses, that they had a chance. I'm not going to say they should have, but they could have beat Bama. That was a winnable game. You make some free throws. You get an offensive rebound with 2 or 3 minutes left whenever Spears got his three-point attempts. You get an offensive rebound, you make a couple free throws, you win that game. That's okay. Kentucky, I don't think even with Wade, I don't know if they win that game just because Kentucky, they looked really good. They were bigger at every position. They were quicker to the ball. A&M just wasn't efficient in that game. But now you're moving forward. You have, who do they have up? LSU?
LSU, then at Ole Miss.
You have LSU and at Ole Miss. Ole Miss just got a big win over Bama.
Mm-hmm.
LSU is a winnable game. That's a game that A&M should win.
Even without Wade.
Even without Wade, I think A&M will win that game. I'm not worried about these 2 losses. If you would have told me there's no Wade Taylor for the first 4 games, I would have said, man, I hope they go 1-3. I hope.
Wow.
Hey, they're 2-2.
Yeah.
Because at the time, you got to look at it. Oklahoma would look like they could beat anybody in the country, and they can. Alabama, top 5. Kentucky, top 10. Like, that's tough.
I want to go back to your point on Zurich. Where do you think his best role is on this team? Because we've seen him go for 34 in a night where he had to handle the ball, but in the next road game at Kentucky, him and Manny both, like, it just the ball gets stuck and then they feel like they've got to force it up or whatever. So with a fully healthy roster, where do you think Zurich Phelps fits the best?
A combo with I think him and Wade splitting, bringing the ball up, playing off the ball at the 2. I don't think either one are point guards, but I do think that they can handle the ball and they can hold that responsibility for spurts of time for a couple plays here and there. And so I think them mixing and matching with the ball handling responsibilities is a good thing. Manny is still struggling. When he brings the ball up and he gets flustered and he's pressured, he's dribbling to the left-hand side and he's trying to back down his guard and he's not passing the ball.
It's like hermit mode. Like hermit,
that's what it is. He knows. And I don't blame him because that's his safety. Mm-hmm. And more times than not, he's more physical and more athletic than the person guarding him. So he's going to try to back him down and play bully ball and get to the rim. That's the coaches to get them to run a play, execute whatever needs to happen. But I think a combination of Phelps and Wade at the 1 and letting them split the 2 because both of them can score in different ways too. So it's not like they're the same player. They score in very different ways, and that's what makes them so hard to guard when they're on the court together.
When we come back, I want to get to Pharrell Payne. I mean, it's been a massive talking point on our message board. Our favorite tweeter, Luke Evangelist, has been hitting send on a lot of Pharrell Payne tweets. But there's some good numbers involved in some of this too, and just get your take on maybe the ball going through him more, and then some of these role players who, if Wade is going to continue to be out, who is going to have to up their game maybe even in the next week. We'll come back with Logan Lee on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Welcome back to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. I'm Ryan Brauninger. Joined in studio, basketball analyst Logan Lee. We continue our conversation about Aggies on the hardwood, LSU coming to town this weekend, and kind of left it last segment, Logan, talking about Pharrell Payne. And with Wade out, does the ball need to get thrown to the low post more often early in the shot clock?
Yes. With Wade Taylor in,
yes,
it needs to go to the post more often. I really do, and that's probably just the old school basketball in me. That's having Joseph Jones and Antanas Kavaliauskas in on the block. Like, my thought process is play inside out, let the bigs take some of that pressure, and then you go dominate on the perimeter.
To me, he's the most skilled and athletic big man Buzz has had. I know Nebo was good. Nebo's just strong and kind of bullied people. But Pharrell's like overall game, he's a good mover. And something we were talking about in the break is where he catches the ball when he does get touches is important too, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Nebo was strong, physical, could put his armpits on the rim, and he was a defender and a rebounder. He blocked shots. Sometimes he would get offensive rebounds and go back up and dunk it, but he wasn't a back to the basket, post him up, he's going to make a move and go score. I think Pharrell Payne is. You put him on the block, and he's going to score. He has great footwork. Against Alabama, 2 dribbles, he was on the left block, 2 dribbles to the middle, went for a right hook, pivoted on the same reverse pivot, back to the left-hand layup. I mean, bigs don't have that type of footwork these days because they don't work on it. And he has that. So, yes, get it to him. I think he's made Henry Coleman 1,000 times better than last year. Henry Coleman couldn't score over anybody that was 6'9" last year. This year, he's actually on the post. He's got some moves. He goes to his right-handed jump hook, and he's scored a couple of times with his back to the basket in a handful of games.
Do you think are they worried about maybe trying some new stuff because they don't want to get out of their system with Wade gone? And to me, if they're not going to start changing offensive system, that's a sign that Wade's close.
I don't know. I just think they don't utilize the post a lot. They utilize it a little, and I thought they've been adding to it.
Or maybe that is part of the game plan, but with these guards, with the ball gets stuck, like maybe they're instructed, hey, throw the ball to the low post.
I mean, it could be.
And they're just not doing it.
It could be hey, this is what we're going to run, but because there's so much pressure on the perimeter, they can't get the ball to him. And like we talked about, you mentioned it, he's not necessarily holding his spot on the block. He's getting pushed out to 16, 17 feet. And as a guard, it's hard to throw the ball to a post that's not posting up in the post.
There's no space.
Because, one, my defender is way too close. 2, if I give it to him, I'm thinking, he's going to have to dribble it 4 times. That's a turnover.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with Pharrell, I don't think it is. I think Payne can control the ball. He's got to have some space to move because he's a big boy. But that's still mentally, that's hard to say, I'm going to give it to him when he's posting up at 17 feet.
One of the things that I think has to happen, and again, we don't know the timetable on Wade, but something that has to happen is guys not named Zurich or even Manny because he touches the ball so much, but like somebody is going to have to play better than they have been. I'm actually excluding Hayden Hefner from this because I think Hayden Hefner has played really well, and he's gone to another level this year than we've seen in the past.
I was just about to say outside of Hayden Hefner because he has been playing. We talked about it in the break, offensive rebounding. Defensive rebounding. He's actually done well on defense. He has done his job in forcing to the corner, in help side rotating. He's done a really good job. Probably needs to make a couple more shots, a couple more open shots. But he's done a really good job. Guys like C.J. Wilshire, guys like Jace Carter, they need to bring it. They need to come along and
where you at
better.
On Solo as an offensive player?
I don't
2 threes the other night.
I still don't want him shooting threes. I'm okay with him testing the water in each game. Hey, I'm gonna throw one up there, see what happens. Yeah. If he's got a good feel for it, if it looks good, if it feels good, then hey, maybe we give him another shot. But I want that boy taking it to the basket. Take it to the basket. Be physical. Go make somebody foul you. I believe he's a good free throw shooter. I don't know.
Look it up right
I haven't looked at his stats. I believe he's a good free throw shooter. So go ahead and get fouled. And he likes making those plays. He likes being physical.
Dude, he's on the ground all the time.
He loves it.
Yeah.
He loves it. Go get hit at the rim. And he's one of those guys that pulls out a SportsCenter highlight dunk on somebody's head.
Mm-hmm.
It can happen on any given play. So go be aggressive.
I've got a kind of a hot take on dunks.
Uh-oh.
Now.
Go for it.
Because just watching enough basketball this year, I'm like, they're cool. And everybody gets hyped for them, but it's 2 points. No different than hitting a 12-footer off the backboard.
Oh, you got old.
No.
How
they're
old
cool,
are you now?
But, like, they don't win you games.
You're old and married.
38.
You're old and married.
Right.
Now you're just one of those guys.
I'm not a hater.
It's just 2 points.
But I'd rather hit threes. There's more value. Like, dunks are like solo homers. Cool. I'd rather have guys on base. You see what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but I like
solo 81%.
81%
from the line. Yeah.
Go to the bucket. Don't hang outside the 3-point line.
I think Anderson Garcia needs to play a little
Go
better.
to the bucket. He's a good free throw shooter, I believe.
And he's at 68, almost 69%.
I mean, I'm okay with that because he's probably gonna make more of those than he's gonna make threes.
Yeah.
But go to the hole, dunk on somebody's head, create the momentum, get the entire team hype, go get a steal at the other end because you just demoralize the other team with a dunk. Because that's what a dunk does, Bronny. It's not just 2 points.
I'm asking. This is my opinion.
You're right.
Hot take.
You're right in the manner that it is 2 points, but it is more than 2 points.
Okay. I'm not a basketball guy, so I'm asking, man. I'm willing to be wrong on some of this stuff. It's just a hot take. But CJ Wilcher, this is a guy they brought in for kind of a specific purpose or to at least fill a role. And it just, whether it's limited minutes, the minutes that he's getting when they're happening in a game, but I think they can get more out of him.
It makes me wonder how they're playing him and what's going on in practice, what they see in practice. Just because you talked about they brought him in for a specific role. Like, that seems to be the only time where he does get minutes is when they need a three. And I like the fact that they run plays for him. Like, they run plays for him, but it's hard. Trust me, a guy sitting on the bench for a while and then coming in the game and getting a shot up, that's tough. When everybody's warm, everybody's all in your face, and you've got to sprint off of a double screen.
This sounds like an open admission that your wife was a better shooter.
To try to no, come on, man.
That's what this sounds like.
Look,
Katie Poundsley, better shooter.
Happy wife, happy life. I'll give her the shooting.
Okay,
but let's play one-on-one and see what happens. She's had 8 knee surgery. She might have to have 9.
You want to go home now?
No, I don't want to go home now.
We're actually up against a commercial break.
I want to stay here.
Logan's going to go home. We'll see if he ever comes back or if you see him at Reed Arena on Saturday. I appreciate you sticking with me for 2 seconds.
Yeah, man, you did a good job.
All right, on the other side, Aaron Torres. We're going to broaden the picture a little bit on this national college basketball stuff. Maybe get his take on the college football playoff final as well. AT, Fox Sports guy, on the other side. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, welcome back to TexAgs Live. Going out to the Boss Firearms Hotline to talk to a great friend of the program. This guy knows a little bit about everything or a lot about nothing. I don't really know. We'll ask him. AT, Aaron Torres, welcome into the show, buddy. I apologize that I can't do better with your intros. You need more gravitas than that.
No, it's okay. First of all, if you ask my wife, I definitely think that she would confirm the latter much more than the former. I think I know a little bit of everything. I don't know if everybody in my inner circle would agree with me, but it's nice to talk with you. You know, Nuno, I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, Ronnie, you're getting a lot of hours this month, and I'm happy for it. Nuno, I mean, this guy just disappears once the season ends. It's strange. But anyway, that's not my business.
Yeah, you know, he's gotten into this MMA stuff, and we think he may be flying down to Brazil to do some like off-card fights. We don't know. We don't know what he's doing, but he'll be back next week. I think you'll get to talk to him next week. You can ask him for yourself.
Hey, I like talking to you, so don't you worry one bit. I mean, if you want to take off another Thursday, that's fine with me. If you want to take off a Tuesday, maybe they can work my schedule and change it around a little bit.
AT, let's start with this. So we just had Logan Lee in. We talked a lot of the micro when looking at Aggie basketball. You look at A&M basketball and college basketball from the macro. From the macro level, zoom out a little bit and tell us where you're at with this A&M basketball team, 2-2, surviving, treading water without Wade Taylor.
Well, the last part is, Aggie fan needs me to tell him, the last part is the key is that, listen, I mean, this was preseason all-SEC first-team type player. I mean, there's no team in college basketball that could survive without a player the importance of Wade Taylor. But I think A&M, especially because they're not one of these offensively inclined teams like in Alabama, like in Kentucky that wants to run up. That's not how they play. And so it makes it that much more important to get them back. Now, to your point, I think they've actually done a pretty good job, treading water without him. And I got to give credit, Zerk Phelps is probably a little bit better than I realized dating back to his days at his last school. And I think I guess this is the way I would put it. I'm excited to see those two again, because if you watched A&M last year, I know you get to the tournament, win a game, you push Houston to the wire, but it just felt like you were one guy short. Is that if Wade Taylor didn't have a great night, was there a second guy that could kind of help him? And even if Wade Taylor had a great night, sometimes it still wasn't enough. I think Phelps is that guy. Now we just got to get them on the court together and see what can happen when those two are on the court together.
Yeah, and, the schedule, the more that games are played, the schedule doesn't look any easier for A&M or, matter of fact, AT, for anybody in this league. And I was of the opinion that Ole Miss was fool's gold until they walk into Tuscaloosa and beat Bama, in their barn. Where are you at on this league? Is there anybody for you early that looks like they're separating themselves?
I think it's probably about a 4, 5, 6 team group at the top, which is obviously a great top level. There were some teams that I did think was a little bit of fool's gold. I thought Oklahoma, if you go back and look, yeah, they won the battle for Atlantis early, but if you actually look at who they beat, Louisville was coming, their best player had gotten hurt the day before, whatever. And I think, sometimes you just got to talk it out, right? Is you look at a school like Oklahoma, best player, true freshman point guard that reclassified. That's generally, you can survive 10, 12 games in the out-of-conference, but when everybody knows you, that could be a little bit of a concern once you get into league play. So I think there are teams that I have questions about, but I think to your point, it's about a 5, 6 team group at the top. But I think what we saw, and I think it's especially true, we saw it the other night on Tuesday, I think even though there are 4, 5 teams, 6 teams at the top, I think just about anybody else can beat anybody on any given night. I think that's what's going to make this league so dangerous, is that you can't take a night off. I don't think Missouri is one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the league, but I think if you show up not ready to play, they're going to beat you like what happened with Florida. Georgia last night, I don't think Georgia's that good, but, Tennessee kind of came out a little sleepy. It was a 9 p.m. Eastern start time, whatever, and Georgia jumped them early. And obviously, Ole Miss, Ole Miss is one that'll be interesting to monitor, but again, Alabama showed up, maybe not ready to play. They're coming off a great win at A&M. Oh, we're back at home. We're going to be, and it's not that easy. So I do think there's probably about a 4, 5, 6 team group at the top. But I think as importantly, on any given night, if you just do not show up ready to play, just about anybody in this league is capable of beating you if you don't show up.
What, in your opinion, what's the bigger injury in the league? Wade Taylor or Janai Broome missing looks like extended amount of time at Auburn?
Well, I mean, one game sample size didn't look like they missed Janai Broome. I will actually say Wade Taylor, and I'll give you a few reasons. One, first of all, the Auburn schedule kind of breaks a little bit nicely for them. They actually, I think they play at Georgia this weekend, but they have a full week off. And every time that Bruce Pearl and his staff talk about that injury, it seems less and less serious. But I think, of course, you have a first-team All-American. You're trending towards the number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. You don't have to rush him back. But I will say Wade Taylor, because I do think there are, as we just previously discussed, some limitations on the Aggie offense if he's not available. Now, if this was a Janai Broome out for the season, that'd be a different kind of conversation. And by the way, I think it might even be a different conversation if, say, Auburn had at Tennessee this Saturday and then at Florida on Tuesday or something. But like I said, they survived game 1 against Mississippi State. I think that Georgia's kind of a nice matchup for them. The other thing I didn't mention, too, I don't know how BP does it, but they play about 9-10 guys, and it doesn't seem like anybody gets mad about it. And as a matter of fact, to take it a step further, their backup center is a fifth-year senior, which is basically unheard of in this modern era of college basketball, and Dylan Cardwell. So I could go on and on, but I think in the short term, it is Wade Taylor. But again, I think there's a lot of variables that go into me saying that.
Around the country, Aaron, who's a team or two maybe that not flying under the radar, but maybe has underperformed from where we thought they would be in the preseason, but you still think has the right recipe to get hot in March and potentially make a Final Four or even beyond run?
Well, underperform. I mean, listen, I think the answer is pretty obvious. It's probably my alma mater, the University of Connecticut. You lose, we know what the history is the last 2 years, but they lost 3 straight in Maui. And even I had question marks about, okay, some of the pieces, did we overvalue this? Did we just put this guy into that role maybe before he was ready? But you look at them, they've gotten back from Maui. I think they're, Brauninger, you'll appreciate this reference. Remember the year that LSU made the national championship game with Les Miles? And Les Miles' big selling point was, well, we've never lost a game in regulation. We never lost a game in regulation. That was his big thing.
Yeah.
Well, I bring it up because UConn's like 13-1 on the mainland. So that's my big UConn selling point is Maui doesn't count. It's 7 time zones away. It was in the middle of the ocean. Doesn't count. So they're like 13-1 in games not in Maui, and their only loss was by 1 point where a career 85% free throw shooter missed 2 free throws in the final seconds to lose that game. So I bring it up because I think that they were, listen, preseason, we're talking three-peat. Then you go 0-3 in Maui, and there's questions. Some people, I didn't buy this, but some people were like, is it even a tournament team? I always thought it was a tournament team. But there was questions about, like, okay, how good are they really? Are they going to be a 9 seed and it's just kind of a forgettable year? And I think they're trending towards competing for a Big East regular season title, probably a 2 through 5 seed in the NCAA tournament, and a team that with that coach, a couple NBA players that can obviously do damage once they get there.
All right, AT, we won't get to talk to you before the college football playoff final on Monday night. Notre Dame and Ohio State, how do you see that one playing out?
Yeah, I'll be honest, listen, and I'll be the 1,000th guest that you have this week that kind of makes the joke about Notre Dame becoming like the underdog feel-good story. And I think we've all kind of grown to like and appreciate Marcus Freeman during this run. But I look at the matchups, and I just think it's really tough for Notre Dame. I mean, we know that their pass game is limited. I think the other thing, too, and this was a conversation that we had dating back to knowing that we were going to have a 12-team college football playoff, was the conversations about depth, right? And you look at Notre Dame, starting left tackle is officially ruled out for this game. Jeremiah Love, their star running back, had a big knee brace on. Best defensive lineman has been out since the Georgia game. I just think those injuries are starting to take a toll on this team, and I don't know that they have the depth. Ohio State, it's weird. It's like they did have injuries, but they were early, and they kind of figured out a way to coach around them, like especially on the O-line. And it does feel like Ohio State's peaking. I just think it's a really, really, really tough spot. So I think Ohio State not only wins, but I know the point spread's about like 8.5. So I'll say Ohio State like 24, Notre Dame 14. Like I said, Notre Dame has become imminently likable with Marcus Freeman, but I just think it's a tough ask. By the way, especially with the way Ohio State's been playing over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
AT, you're the man. Always appreciate your time, buddy.
All right. We will talk soon, brother. Thank you, Bronny. Have a good day. We'll talk soon, okay?
Yes, sir. That's AT. Aaron Torres, Fox Sports radio host, joining TexAgs live here in the 9 o'clock hour on a Thursday morning. We come back. Nick, you know what I'm going to do when I come back?
What are you going to do?
I'm going to give away pizza because I know you're worried about it.
You remembered because I definitely forgot again.
All right, we come back. We're going to close the 9 o'clock hour. You listen to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. think my ears are deformed, or they're not shaped like normal people's ears, because every time I have headphones, whether they be these or my AirPods for when I'm working out, like anytime I move my head, they move from outside of from being snugly fit into my ears. They like wobble and it bothers me.
That happens to me too every time I host, Bronny. I'm like
really?
fighting a war with my headphones.
But you know what? Even my over the top headphones, like so my Dre Beats, I have a pair of those. Like even those, they move all the time. I'm like, how does everybody else's? Maybe everybody else's move too, and I just don't know. But everybody else seems to stay still when they're working out, and mine are all over the place. Anyway, Ryan,
you're just moving too much weight, bro.
No. Well, I'm trying not to. That's the goal. If I ever get into the shred shack, that's what we're trying to do, Nick. Shred, not make like monster gains. Maybe me and you.
I'm not going to go Nuno on you. But,
different.
I mean, you can lose weight lifting heavy weights.
Oh, for sure. We got to give away pizza. Speaking of losing weight, this is a good way to not lose weight, but who cares? It's delicious pizza from Double Days. Right now, caller number 12. Don't forget our final segment is brought to you by Double Days. Final segment at 10:50. Caller number 12 right now at 979-693-1150. That's 979-693-1150. We'll hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's, serving Aggieland and beyond since 1984. Your favorite pizza, world-famous pepperoni rolls, reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click doubledaves.com, and your favorites are on the way. We are on our way to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Miss Caitlin Torn has some text, I believe.
Yes, the first text that I want to tell you is from Wixon Ag, and he has a opinion. He says B team is superior.
B team is superior. Well, I'm probably better at some things than David, but hosting a radio show is not one of them. And you know why I know that is because his brain can do all this color-coded crap he's got on the rundown sheet, and it just frazzles my brain every time I try to even look at it. He's also bilingual. Makes him, I guess. Yeah. And as we pointed out yesterday, he also wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning to work out, which somehow makes him a better human being than others.
Yeah.
Which I never understood that. Why does it matter what the time on the clock says? It shouldn't matter about how hard you work, right?
Yeah.
And if you wake up at 5 o'clock and you're going to bed at 7:30, and I wake up at 7:30 and I go to bed at 10 o'clock, we both were awake for the same amount of hours. About what you did with the hours you were awake.
Mm-hmm.
Me and
He's
David
told me too. He goes to bed super early.
Yeah, for sure. But it doesn't make him any better than me and you.
Of course not.
Anything else?
And then right as Logan was walking out, we got a text from David and Franklin that asked, why doesn't A&M take more 2-point jumpers? There are higher percentage shots, and I see very few teams that use that as a weapon to open up the paint more.
I don't know. I'm not a basketball guy, but I would imagine that there's just not a lot of value in shooting long 2-pointers. You might as well take 1 step back and shoot a 3-pointer. I would imagine that the analytics say that there's just higher value in that. And if you don't have great 3-point shooters, I don't understand why you'd have elite long 2-point shooters either. You know, I just think they're going to ride the ups and downs of shooting all season long, which is kind of goes to our point of throwing the ball to Pharrell Payne a little bit more to maybe get the offense moving with Wade Taylor out. When we come back, the Fan Show. It's a Thursday edition of TexAgs Live presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Royce Hickman, Matt Browning, Ryan Brauninger. It's the Fan Show, and we are strangely enough missing somebody who had a career in the Army where I think you have to be punctual.
You're supposed to be on time, and Roy May is not here yet.
So when Roy, if and when he shows, we're hoping that he's on his way.
Oh, yeah.
And we're hoping that he's okay. But if he shows up and walks through that door, he's here? Okay, we're going to heckle him when he walks through the door then, because
he needs to get
our clock, Royce, says 10:01. And
yes, it does.
And
10:01:01 is
10:01. That's right. And Roy, being an Army man, I feel like that's late.
Well, I've spent a couple of years active duty.
I'll walk around the cameras.
You're late.
Yeah, I'm just gonna. Hey, I will say you got to give the man a little credit. He is one of the hardest working men in the real estate business, and sometimes you get a little busy. So,
well, he came dressed up for us today. Hair's done and everything.
I'm literally working.
I've been there, dude.
Yeah.
Guys, welcome in. Fan Show Thursday edition. Probably going to be a little hoops oriented, but we always start with your thoughts, Royce. Age and beauty before these other two jokers. So,
please, wisdom.
What do you think? What's on your mind today?
Well, first of all, I have a grandson that's birthday. Happy birthday, Tucker. He works in recruiting with he's a student worker with the football program.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. And also, I've got good feelings about the basketball team weathering the storm without Wade. And it's just been close, and I think just one or two things, if they'd have done differently, we could have even a better outcome.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's discouraged, Roy, about what we've seen over and when you looked at the conference slate, you said, okay, those first four, they're going to be tough to navigate. And that was when we were looking at Oklahoma as an undefeated team, didn't know that they were going to start off 0-4, but somebody in this league was going to have to. And with A&M without their best players and one of their all-time best players, 2-2. Where are you at with basketball, Roy?
Yeah, that's actually what was on my mind. Luke does such a great job with the number crunching. Like, if you're not following Luke Evangelist, you need to.
Oh, boy.
Especially if you want to know, he's
going to clip that and tweet it.
There you go. But if you want to know, because he really dives into the analytics of it.
Yeah.
And this last game, going over from behind the arc in the second half, that just doesn't happen, right? So it's an anomaly. It is what it is. A bit of a concerning trend, what looks to be a trend, kind of things that we've seen in past years at the free throw line. So that's something that I would like to see them get fixed, which seems like a broken record. But again, not discouraged at all. We knew what this conference was going into it. And we're hanging there and we're real tight without the best player, right? And so a couple balls fall our way, shoot a little bit better from the charity stripe. We're looking at an undefeated start, but we're not. We are where we are. I just think it's interesting that you look at football, and Texas came in and did really well in the SEC, right? But OU did not, would be a nice way to put it. Now you're looking at basketball, and the two newcomers may be the two in the conference that don't make the tournament. So now you're looking at OU going, man, how's your baseball team? Really, it's softball for them.
They've got women's softball.
Yeah, they do have that. Matt?
Yeah, so my thought, and we've talked about this, and Dave and I have said this before, because of the non-conference slate and how well we did the non-conference slate, you go 500 in this league, and you're a top 15. You're a top 15 team in the country.
Reminds me so much of SEC baseball. It's like where your aiming point. Mike Early is going to walk in with the number one team in the country. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But you're looking at the number one team in the country against that schedule, going 15-15 in the league is pretty good. 500 ball in the league is good. So that's what I'm looking through, kind of a similar lens for basketball.
And you look at football. So baseball. So we're used to that in baseball, and we're actually used to that in football. Even though this year was more, I would consider this year kind of a down year in regards to that, just with parity and everything that's kind of the changes that we made in football. But basketball, the SEC has not really been this caliber ever. I don't know if a conference from top to bottom has maybe ever been this good.
If you want to go apples to apples in the same sport, think about the ACC maybe like 7 years ago. The ACC was just the crown jewel of college basketball.
Yes.
You didn't want to play them.
And so you look at, let's face facts. Kentucky and Alabama are really, really, really good basketball teams. And we hung in there, and we took them both pretty much to the wire. I know that Kentucky kind of pulled away there towards the end, but both of those we did without our absolute best player. Like we said the other day, I think on the Mount Rushmore of Aggie basketball, I think Wade is the second best player we've ever had by an AC Law and AC Law alone. And so to take that guy off the court and still play as hard as they do, to scrap the way they do. We did hit all of our threes in the first half, which we hit more threes in that game than we normally do, but we hit them all in the first half. And then the free throws. The free throws are our biggest biggest weakness.
We beat Alabama with decent free throw shooting.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a lot easier for me to wrap my head around the statement, if we had Wade, we beat Alabama, than if we had Wade, we beat Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
I watched that Kentucky game and going, there were times when I thought Kentucky was going to run off and leave.
Yes. Well, and you're at Rupp, too.
Yeah.
You know, it's on the road.
Right.
I think that was really the most disappointing thing about the Alabama game is it's at home when you miss 20-some-odd free throws in the gym that you play in all the time, right? So missing free throws is one thing. Doing it at home, I think, is probably my biggest pet peeve. Like on the road, it's a crazy environment. Yeah. Rupp Arena's nuts.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, if your offense is to drive the ball to the hole and get fouled, you got to make your free throws.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, that is our offense in a nutshell. And now I will say the one thing I will say about when Wade's on the court as opposed to having Obeski or Zerk Phelps, they get into the offense a lot quicker. I mean, they drive the lane and they try to get into the offense as quick as we can. And I mean, but the possessions where we're feeding Pharrell Payne and getting into the block and all that, so you're slowing the game down. And against a team like Kentucky who can score as fast as they can, I think that is where Wade would come in and do a little different.
I actually think that my opinion is that with Wade out, to me, watching this team, and I'm been saying it all morning, I'm not a basketball guy. This is a guess, and I could be wrong. But to me, Pharrell Payne is now your best offensive threat, and the ball needs to go through him more. I think the low post needs to get the ball more with Wade out.
Yeah,
Agreed, 100%. And then I do think this is one of those kind of things, though, that if Wade comes back healthy and can be back to 100% and play the rest of the season, this is one of those little stretches where a lot of these guys that aren't normally getting the touches and would have not been scoring had he been there are getting some confidence, and it's good. And I think it's good overall in the long run.
Yeah, we're going to have more depth because of the strength of those players that have had the time. I think Logan made that point earlier.
Yeah, they're getting good playing time and good experience in there.
I think the other concerning thing, and it's there's no one stat you can draw a direct line to wins or losses, right? But was it 4 assists?
To me, that's an indicator that the ball's getting stuck on the point too much.
Exactly.
Like, I think Manny and Zoo will bring the ball down, and if there's not something there early to get them to the basket, it's a lot of dribble with the ball stuck at that position. So, again, I think Wade mitigates that, certainly.
100%.
And then just the overall schedule, like you're looking at the SEC, and Roy, you mentioned it, but Mizzou walks into Florida 2 nights ago, and beats Florida at home in their own court.
Yeah.
And then Oklahoma, who had kind of been treading water and competitive and obviously really good in the non-conference, starts 0-4. I thought Ole Miss was fool's gold.
Yeah.
They walk into Bama's gym after Bama beat us here, and they made easy work of Bama. It's like, this league is not going to allow you to come up for air, and that's why I think having an older, experienced team like Buzz Williams has they're set up for this. Like, there's no reason to panic. You're going to lose games in this league.
Yeah, well, and we have the blessing of having that much experience, which in college basketball has always been a rarity, right? Mm-hmm. The best teams are the one and done guys, right?
Most talented teams.
Yeah, the most talented teams generally, as long as they can figure out how to play together by the end of the year.
Yep.
So having that experience, again, an anomaly, right? At the basketball level. And so you top that off, and we've talked about it before, you top that off with the quality of the guard that we have, even though he's hurt right now, and the experience of that guard. And those are the teams that make deep runs in March.
Well, that's why I think, too, Matt, you've got to wait out Wade.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to be 100% healthy. And yes, his fitness levels are going to suffer because of it.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you rather having him getting 12, 15, 20, growing into his minutes than you force him back and he's not ready? Now it's another 2 weeks before he's back on the court.
Yeah, you run the risk of losing him for the rest of the year. Too.
Yeah, I mean, to me, your focus has to be on the tournament.
Yeah,
your focus has to be on the tournament. You've got a tournament team. This team is a tournament team. I think that anyone looking at it is seeing this is a tournament team, and this team is good enough to win to beat the LSU's, the Texases, the Oklahomas, and that sort of thing. Ole Miss coming in or going on the road to Ole Miss. I mean, this team is good enough to win these ball games. They just have to, even without Wade, but your focus has to be on the tournament and having your stud healthy. Because come tournament time, no Wade, no dice, right?
Well, and that injury is one that can linger and linger and linger. So I'm 100% on board with you.
Well, I think like even teams like Ole Miss, who's playing outside their mind, and I think Chris Beard's a really good basketball coach. We can talk about other stuff, but he's a good basketball coach. I feel like I've made that statement quite about some other people.
We'll keep it between the baselines.
Yeah, good coach, right?
What is it about Ole Miss and their coaches, huh?
Yeah.
But I do think that that's a team in terms of overall raw talent is not in the same level of Alabama and Kentucky. A&M, to me, A&M hung in with the Crimson Tide and the Wildcats because of their guile, their experience, their tenacity, their toughness. Mm-hmm. There's on a certain level, without your best player, there's too much of a gap. There's too much of a temperature gap between you and those elite talent teams. Whereas an Ole Miss who's playing really well, or Mississippi State who's playing really well, you're closer to them in terms of overall talent, even without Wade. And that's where I think that experience and the togetherness, the tenacity, the way the team buzzes teams, that's where they can get you over the hump. It may happen for you once in a blue moon against these super talented teams, but it's going to be hard to beat Alabama without your best player on the floor.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
That's a great point. I mean, it really is. If you, the one thing we've got, I mean, if you look Wade and Henry Coleman and Manny Obaseki and Solo and Garcia, Hefner, these guys have all played together for at least 3 seasons. How many teams in this league can say
great.
that? That's an insane amount of time, especially in college basketball. And then you sprinkle in the new guys like Pharrell Payne and Zurich and all these guys, and you're adding to it. But I mean, there's no one else in this league that has as much experience in playing together and senior-ish leadership than we do. So I think that's a great point. When you run up against these teams that are more talented, that are that you still have a chance to beat them, but when you get on the even playing field, which the last 2 teams have been more talented basketball teams, they are, but to lose. I know we're in this weird spot where we just lost back-to-back games, but we just lost back-to-back games against 2 of the best teams in the country without our best player, and when they weren't bad. So I think we're still super high. We're still optimistic about it, and we just keep plugging away. And the next few games will really be the
those role players are going to have to play better.
Yep.
They do, and I don't feel like I'm trying to call anybody out. I just think like we've seen Jace Carter play better. We've seen Anderson Garcia play better. Mm-hmm. These guys, C.J. Wilcher was brought in to fill a role. Like I think I'm trying to be more encouraging than anything. It's like, look, yeah, they've lost 2 games without Wade, and they have had guys. We talk about Hayden Hefner. He's upped his game 5 levels from last year.
Unbelievable.
He's well-rounded. Like he doesn't need to come off the floor for defense, and he's rebounding. But they're going to need more of that. Like they're going to need Jace Carter to play closer to his ceiling and Solo. I don't know how much longer Wade's out, but if they even get all those guys to kind of push toward what their ceilings are, even with or without Wade, it's a better basketball team. And I think that's where you're looking at how could we get away from this 500 mark? How do we start getting toward 11-7, 12-6? I think it has less to do with Wade. Obviously, get him healthy, but it has less to do with Wade and more to do with the guys underneath him.
Mm-hmm. And in this next little stretch against, I mean, there's still LSU's still not just a complete pushover.
There's not a pushover
Texas
in this league.
No. Oklahoma's not either. Now you got Ole Miss in there, but I mean, if you win 3 of the next 4 games, you're right back. You just look. All we've got to do is hover around 500, and we're probably a 5 seed or better.
All right, we're going to take a little early break. When we come back, I do want to talk about Aggie baseball. Less than a month away now. I think tomorrow will be 4 weeks away from opening day at Bluebell Park. Tricia Ford's got a top 10 preseason team over at softball. And obviously, Aggie football remains active in the portal. We'll get you guys' thoughts on what Mike Elko and company have done to kind of replenish the roster after all these offseason moves. But a lot more to get to. With the Fan Show on TexAgs Live, we're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers.
What's up, TexAgs? This commercial break is brought to you by my good friends over at Aggieland Chevrolet, the official automotive sponsor of TexAgs.com and me, Billy Lucci. Greg Gunn is the proud owner of Aggieland Chevrolet and invites you to visit the dealership to experience true Aggie hospitality. From their friendly staff to the experienced service team, Aggieland Chevrolet is TexAgs approved. Check out the dealership off of Highway 6 in Bryan or go to AggielandChevrolet.com and tell them Billy Lucci sent you by.
Red Stiegel bringing us. That's Red Stiegel bringing you back. Lone Star Beer and Bob Wills Music. Fan show on a Thursday morning. TexAgs Live presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Roy Sickman, Roy May, Matt Browning to my right. Changing gears a little bit, looking at Aggie football and the transfer portal, and this transfer portal thread, as I mentioned off the top of the show, is now greater than 3.8 million views in over a month. I would imagine that a couple of those at least have come from you guys. What do you, Roy, we'll start with you, just your overall thoughts on what Elko's been able to do so far in this window?
Obviously address some needs, right? I think what we saw last year in the portal, where he basically showed up and he had, a handful of days to put things together. I think last year he showed us what he was capable of. And so this year, having a year, to really be prepared going into it, he knew what A&M was about, last portal, but a little bit more settled. He's got his staff. He's able to focus on it. So what he's done in order to address needs, I've been very happy with. I really like the wide receiver takes. Big fan of the quarterback take for the experienced backup, and good enough maybe to push.
People forget that Jacob Zeno, when he was healthy in 2023, is the greatest quarterback season in UAB history. Now I know it's a different level, but this kid is not some just old guy that has no ability.
Right.
Legitimately under Trent Dilfer, won a Super Bowl, the greatest quarterback season at Alabama Birmingham.
The most random quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so I like what he's done to address some needs. We're still not done, obviously. And then we're also, because correct me if I'm wrong, the playoff teams, those kids get a different portal window, right?
They have 5 days after their final game.
Right. So that's been interesting to kind of track just the teams that are dropping off and who's.
The more interesting thing to me is how I guess they're going to give academic leeway to these kids that are going in the transfer portal late, because like A&M's last day to add drop is tomorrow, but they've got a kid visiting this weekend from Penn State.
Right.
So I would imagine that there's some kind of exemption for these guys going into the portal academically and not just athletically as well. I haven't asked specifically about that, but why else would they be bringing them in after the ad drop?
There has to be.
Yeah,
so maybe they moved the window just, and that's, again, goes back to this whole thing is a mess, the way they just kind of went with it.
Yes.
So,
Royce?
Yeah, it really, Roy said a lot of what I thought about wide receivers. I like the quarterback situation. And really, top to bottom, I don't see that he's brought in a player that I think's a weak player. I mean, there's been times in the past where you're just getting a body.
Yeah, more quality ads.
Right, but I think across the board, the quality, and you would know more about that because of your work on
right.
that.
I think last year it got to the point when, like Roy mentioned, that he was drinking out of a fire hose every day, trying to put the staff together. I know that like the guys that were monitoring the portal and trying to make sure visits were planned and set up were also, in the meantime, trying to look for places to live.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to live at the facility. Like that was all going on, convoluting it, coalescing at one moment in time. Whereas this year, obviously, have a much better plan going in. And they also, Matt, they don't have to take bodies to fill positions.
Right.
Yeah, and that's one of the big advantages, especially in regards to now. I guess at receiver we kind of had to, but with the bodies that we filled have been fantastic. First thing I want to say is that my favorite entire function of this is the staff only button. So thank God for that. I kid you not.
This thread won't die, by the way.
To filter through the absolute amount of nonsense. Now there is some really funny stuff on there. Some of these guys are really, really funny. I gotta give the posters credit. There's some hilarious stuff on there. But I literally every morning, staff only, hit to the end, read any updates from you or Hal that I haven't seen yet, and then I'm off. And you can go down some crazy bonkers rabbit holes going through this thread right here. How many pages are we at now?
But there's some dark places.
There's some dark. There's some people on
451 pages.
451 pages.
There's some people following that thread and commenting on that thread that probably need to step away from athletics.
15,000 posts, and the thing is, and we knew this going in because of. I'm trying not to be braggadocious about it, but just the platform that we have.
Right.
There are a lot of people that view that thread that have no affiliation with Texas A&M. Right. We have a lot of people that view that thread that are actually affiliated with other universities and football programs that screenshot whatever Roy Sickman says behind his username, and I'm not accusing you of anything, or Roy May says behind their random username, and all they need to do, and this is why you'll never control what people say, especially behind the veil of anonymity. You'll never be able to control it. But if we made you put Matt Browning as your username and Roy Sickman and Roy May, we'd clean up a lot of this stuff.
Oh, a lot of
We'd clean up a lot of it.
Matter of fact, almost all of it.
But what the people that are recruiting against Texas A&M, they don't care what the username is. All they need to do is send that Texas Aggie 4038 thinks that Micah Hudson's a bad player, and they screenshot that. And if they're on the Texas Tech staff, they're trying to keep Micah, or there's somebody that's recruiting against.
Do they do that? They really do? That is crazy.
But here's why. It 90% of the time, 95% of the time, it may not work. But all they need to do is create a little doubt.
Yeah.
That's all they need.
Yep.
That's all recruiting is.
And
if you feel like a kid's dead set to go somewhere, or you're battling head to head with a rival, how do I create some doubt about the other place?
Yeah. Yeah. And these are kids. These are kids who can't, who probably haven't gotten to that point in life where they go, 99% of the things I see on the internet are complete nonsense.
Yeah.
But
they're naive about those things.
There's some naivety there. But the
oh boy.
Yeah, I tried a big word. I'm
Chew
sorry.
through that one.
I'm sorry. Hey, forgive me. We'll cut this out.
Don't ask him to define it.
Hopefully.
Much less spell it.
Fact is that I always kind of wondered that. Do they? I mean, like, I know some of these kids have to look at this stuff.
All is fair in love and recruiting.
No, 100%.
Golly, that's crazy.
No, it's as cutthroat as it gets.
Yes, and having dipped my toe, I guess even more than dipped my toe, having dove headfirst into both the baseball recruiting world and the football recruiting world, and I mean, I've told Mike earlier this to his face. The recruiting portal last summer for baseball was crazy because of the coaching change and coming off the College World Series, all that stuff. It is elementary school playground compared to this football stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The stories, I mean, somebody that does what I do or Jason does.
You need to write a book.
Somebody's going to.
Yeah.
Somebody is, once they're done with their time as a recruiting analyst,
burn it down.
They're going to write a book. By that point, you won't be able to burn it down because it'll be all stuff in the past. And we're not going. It was almost better. I hate to say this, but it was almost better when it was all done under the table and nobody knew.
Mm-hmm.
And you were just giving Eric Dickerson Trans Ams and he was going to SMU instead. You know, like that was, it was almost, you almost kind of want to go back to that because what we've got now, where does it stop?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely the problem.
And how do you put the toothpaste back in the tube?
You just don't.
Well, the NCAA can't handle basic things, so they can't get a toothpaste back
right. But it's their fault.
Yeah, it is.
For not having the foresight. Everybody could see this was coming a million miles away.
Right.
And they sat on their hands, and now they've become feckless for all intents and purposes. They've got no governing power because if I'm the NCAA, as soon as I tell Matt Browning he can't do something, you go to the courts. Mm-hmm. And the courts say, yes, you can. And then what power do I have as the governing body of the sport?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those deals where it's taken. I've said this before. It's taken away some of the pride we have in our team, right? And look, if we win a national championship, we'll all be super proud. But in the old days, when it was under the table and we didn't know why they were selecting your school, you think, okay, they selected our school because they think our school is the best school. Our school is the best school. That's why we get the best players, because we have the best school. And so then when we go and win, then we're really proud of that team, that fact. But now it's just, all right, who's got the most money?
Well,
it's kind of the way we look at it.
I do think, though, that loyalty is going to create more value going forward, right? So
I sure hope so.
Let's just say, look at the baseball team, for example.
That, yeah.
Okay. Jace Lavalette could have commanded just about any amount he wanted to in the transfer portal, right?
Yes.
He chose to come back to Texas A&M because he loves this place, and he loved playing in front of the 12th man and Coach Early and his teammates, and they all came back for those. Ryan Prager. I mean, he stared at a $1.3 million signing bonus and said, "No, I'll go back to Texas A&M." Like, these kids were loyal to this school, to this program. They don't know this now. And they obviously got lucrative. I say lucrative. They got NIL deals to come back to Texas A&M. But Jace Lavalette told me point blank, and this was off the record, but Jace won't care that I say this. He said, I wanted to come back and write my names in those history books at Texas A&M, not anywhere else. Mm-hmm. And I wanted my name to be etched in the walls of Bluebell Park. And I wanted that for my entire life. And I said, well, Jace, that's incredibly mature because these people will remember that.
Yes.
And as soon as baseball's done, you are hireable for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Even if you don't play another game at Texas A&M, that's what you are. And not just Jace, it's a bunch of those guys. So what I'm saying is, I think the people that are pushing the NIL stuff, and I mean pushing, I mean writing the big checks, they're going to say, hey man, like, we want you to stay. If you kind of stick with us through this stuff, we're going to keep paying you. We're going to be loyal to our guys. We're going to make sure the people
loyal to those that are loyal to you.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like the guys that want to stay and fight. Like, I just think, and especially over the long term, when you think about what we know about NIL, it's a very small blip. It's a very small snapshot of what we got. We got no idea about 10, 12, 15 years. The guys that left, the odds are that you're not going to stick in the professional ranks, right?
Yeah.
What does that do for your professional career?
Yeah. That's a good point.
There's where your loyalty amasses money. It's not while you're in school. It could be, this is just a hypothesis. I'm just guessing here, but it could be that we start seeing the loyalty and the reward for the loyalty on the back end.
It's like, that's a great point, because if you think about it, somebody like Noah Thomas, right? So Noah, I mean, and we can even use Evan Stewart. Evan Stewart played here 2 years left, right? One day when he's done with football, where is he going? I mean, where's he going to turn to for his home base? Where just like, I mean, you can see it with Swope, McGee, guys like that, Terrence Murphy, these guys that have hung around the program, that have stayed here, who have used what they did in the past to their benefit today, which I'm all for.
Yes.
Great, go out there and use that. I mean, they're Aggies. Aggies love them, and they're in that network forever. But a guy like Evan Stewart, I mean, he plays there 2 years? Is he as beloved at Oregon as someone like Ryan Swope would have been here, or someone like Mike? Well, Mike Evans is completely different stratosphere. But I mean, so Noah. I mean, had Noah stayed this next year and played here, Noah would have been considered an Aggie for the rest of his life. He would have been one of these guys. Hey, you go somewhere, they buy you a beer, or hey, you need a job. We got here. This guy's over. Man, I mean, you're one of us.
Let me help you get a job.
Yeah.
Let me introduce you to some people.
And so that loyalty is impressive. And like when you talk about Jace Lavalette, I remember when Billy Gillespie left, right? So Billy Gillespie's here, and he goes and he takes the job at Kentucky. And I thought to myself, why would he do that? You stay here, be even remotely successful, we'll build statues of you. What do you have to do at Kentucky to get a statue built of you as a basketball coach? You've got to do quite a bit, right? And so you look at someone like Jace Lavalette, who's going, hey, you know what? I want to be an Aggie for life. I want to be part of this. I want to have a home base I can always come back to, even when baseball's done. I can have my name written everywhere. I will be remembered much longer than even guys that were of equal talent to me, but who transferred a bunch of times, because you're right. Loyalty is repaid, even years down the road.
I think that's easier for us to say, though, because of the lens that we're looking through.
Sure, absolutely.
As Aggies, we know what the Aggie network is.
And we're old, and we have hindsight, too.
But we also know. I mean,
if Noah Thomas goes to Athens and he has a great year at Georgia and he gets drafted in the top 3 rounds and he plays 10 years in the NFL, he won't care.
Yeah.
It won't matter. It really won't matter. But that's a risk. You're rolling the dice to do that.
If he doesn't make it to the NFL or he gets hurt, and can't play anymore, that's when they'll regret.
Yeah.
Big time.
I hope he doesn't. I mean, I don't wish regret
totally agree.
on
No, I don't wish failure. Well,
all right, when we come back, let's talk more about Aggie baseball, preseason #1, Mike Hurley and company. Starting practice, spring training type practice this week as we get ready for February, and it'll probably be really cold at Bluebell Park, as it always is.
Tradition.
Yes, it is tradition. More with the Fan Show on the other side. You're listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, we're back. I screwed up as I often do. That's why we call this the B team version of TexAgs Live. We actually have stuff to get to, so we welcome in over in the Angry Elephant News and Social Center.
If you don't tell them you screwed up, they'd never know.
Yeah, but I teased that we were going to talk about baseball.
Oh, that's fair.
Don't back.
Look, I won't take up too much time. All right, is that
That's
fair?
okay.
There's only one game.
Our penitent Frenchman,
Okay.
Matthew Dawson, and his new facial hair.
See, this is like why people are afraid to try new things. Probably it's because things like
Did
this
I say
happen.
anything? Hold on. Did I say anything offensive or bad?
No, you haven't. No,
Okay.
but there is a poll outside, like you were referring to off air.
Did I?
before.
Hold on. Did I write that tally mark?
I don't know if you wrote.
There's
it,
a
but
poll
I know
outside. There's a poll outside discussing his facial hair, and there's tally marks under like nice or yuck. And Richard was the one that brought me this to my attention.
Okay.
And I didn't make one mark on there.
It's a big deal if I have facial hair around here. It's a huge deal.
Listen,
You should feel important.
Let me say something. Some of the best decisions I've made in life, or changes I made in life, were because my friends made fun of me for the other thing I was doing. So I had to. So friends.
An ad for
Friends are
bullying
important.
works.
Friends are
Bullying still works, man. It's a shame we don't do it more in schools.
Bullying works, kids.
Oh, boy.
All right, let's get to this. Prize picks. We got national championship game on Monday. Ohio State versus Notre Dame. Let's get to the first one. Will Howard is going to have more than or less than 245.5 passing yards.
Ooh, that's a tough one because Notre Dame is.
They're both really good teams.
Yeah, I think that Notre Dame's
Hence why they're
defense is
playing for
really
the national
good.
championship.
Less than.
I'm gonna say less.
Okay.
On this one.
Less.
Yeah, that's a big number, man. I'm going to go less.
Ooh, less than's across the board. All right, Riley Leonard is he going to have more than or less than 172.5?
Sheesh.
Pretty low.
Less.
I'm gonna go more, just to be different.
They're banged up. Their left tackle's not going to play. Jeremiah Love's wearing a leg brace.
But Jagasaw's back.
Is he? Okay.
Jagasaw's healthy now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, still.
He played some guard against Penn State, didn't he?
Who is, I don't trust them to get open against Ohio State caliber athlete. I'll go less than.
Yeah, I'll say less than too.
Yeah, I'm going to go more. That's a low number.
Yeah, negative game script maybe. We'll see. Jeremiah Love, the running back for Notre Dame, is he going to have more than or less than 41.5 rushing
More.
yards?
That one's the only one that
He
I
is
feel
banged
good
up,
about.
but he could rip a 41-yarder
On one play.
Yeah, I'll go more.
Yeah, more for me.
Yeah, I don't care if he's banged up. You saw what he did, even banged up. That dude is a baller. I'll go more.
By the way, the most underrated, I think, group in this game that's not been talked about, who's been playing out of their minds in the playoffs, is Ohio State's front seven.
So, yeah.
They have been insanely good.
Yes, they have. And I tell you this, I jumped off the couch when that kid hit yours and his old roommate hit him, takes that ball and runs it back.
Who did they have before? Who did Ohio State have before Texas? Was it Oregon?
Yes. Oregon.
When I watched that game, I remember sitting there watching it going, this is the best team in the country.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and they had to play Tennessee, Oregon, and Texas to get to this point.
Nobody's been within a score. Been 2-score wins at least every one of these.
If you'd have told me that, but if before the bracket, I looked at it and said, Ohio State has by far the hardest trek to get to the national championship if they end up
that
playing
Michigan
that schedule.
loss might be the best thing that happened to them.
Makes me want to throw up my mouth a little bit saying it, but Ohio State's good.
I think that brought them back to earth.
Hey, and those Ohio State fans still want to get rid of Ryan Day. Who explain that?
Well, if they lose the national championship, they can him.
Speaking of Ohio State, let's talk about Quinshon Judkins. Is he going to have more than or less than 55.5?
That's easy.
Yards?
More. I know Notre Dame's defense is good, but
I'm going to go less than. I think Notre Dame's defense steps up big time in this game.
Yeah, I think Ohio State's going to win the game something like 24-14, 27-14.
I see like a 24-21. I think if Riley Leonard can get loose a little.
Yeah, Judkins is only going to have like 12 carries. That means like he's got to have 5.
I was going less than. I think they're going to run for maybe right at 100.
I think Ohio State's going to get total. I think Ohio State's going to get a big lead and they're going to run the ball, burn clock.
Well, yeah, if that happens, then yeah. But I'll go less.
That's why I'm going more. I hope not, but I think that's why
I'm going more.
More? All righty. Jeremiah Smith, the wide receiver for Ohio State, who's absolutely insane. Is he going to have more than less than 80.5 receiving yards?
More.
Yeah, I would bet on more because he was 3 yards last game.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that kid's a freak. He's actually, if you're going to be an A&M fan and be really excited, pretty similar measurables to Jerome Miles. Now, the thing that Jerome Miles is coming off an injury, a knee injury, but when you look at size, speed, stature, the whole thing, pretty similar skill set.
Yeah.
All right, so everyone's on the more then there?
More?
You know what? I'm going to go less. I think Notre Dame might key in on him.
Best corner's out, right?
For Notre Dame? I think Christian Gray's playing. Well, Benjamin Morrison's been out for a while.
Right. Well, yeah.
And then Christian Gray's playing. He's like the redshirt sophomore. He'll probably be on Jeremiah Smith. I kind of like Carnell Tate, by the way, if anyone's playing Prize Picks, because
what's the tight end number? I like the tight end.
Oh, G. Scott, 17 and a half.
I'd hammer that over. Why didn't we get that one? I'd hammer that
because it's a gimme.
It was a layup. All right, here we go. Last one. Jordan Faison, wide receiver for Notre Dame, lacrosse player. Is he going to have more than less than 37 and a half receiving
He's special.
yards? He's pretty cool.
I'm gonna go more.
I'm gonna say less.
I'm an old lax player.
I'll go more. Yeah. Although I don't think that Ryan Leonard's going to throw for. I don't think Ryan Leonard's going to throw for more than 160.
Yeah, but that number's low.
That's a low number.
He's their best. He is their best.
He reminds me of Penn State's do everything guy, Ty Warren.
No. Yeah.
Well, that's it, boys. Good luck, and I guess you can continue talking about baseball.
No, we're going to go to commercial. We'll come back, have a longer final segment. We'll talk Aggie baseball preseason number 1. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. On the other side, a lot more. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, final segment of the show. Got about 5 minutes left with the fan guys here. Roy May, Roy Sickman, Matt Browning. I'm Ryan Brauninger. I'm going to have a lot of airtime between now and February 14th to talk about Aggie baseball. I'll have a lot of time to sit in front of my computer here and write about it. But the first big piece of news, I guess, looks like they're going to be the unanimous preseason number one. But the poll that really matters is D1 baseball. Our friend Kendall Rogers and company announced that the Aggies are preseason number one heading into 2025. Just where you want to start, Roy?
Can we talk just real quick before we get into it? Dude, Kendall, I know Kendall Corey, I love him, right? Dude, what a great job he's done building that from literally the ground up. I'm so proud. I love it. I love what he's done with D1.
He's the number one voice in college baseball.
I absolutely love that.
Without question, I think.
Yeah,
without question.
Yeah, I think. I mean, you can put us at 1, you can put us at 2, but the reality is we're 1 or 2. I mean, if you don't have us 1 or 2, you're probably not paying much attention to baseball. Lofty expectations, right?
Yeah, we were talking about this with if you're coach early. You'd much rather be preseason number 1 than preseason number 100.
Yeah.
But man, you're walking. That's and I know him. He's chomping at the bit because he's ready to prove people that think he can't coach wrong.
Think he can't fill the shoes, right? If Schlosson come back and do that with this roster, and I think he knows that this team is number one. I think he does, and all these guys came back to do it. We were talking about Jace earlier. Like they came back to do this, to be number one, to win in Omaha, and I'm through the roof with it, man. I'm chomping at the bit for baseball season.
I think the tailgating scene for February 14th, from what I've heard early on, is going to mimic a small Kyle Field look scene between Reed Arena and the parking lot at Bluebell. But Royce, a lot of these, it's not just Jace, it's not just Prager. I mean, they return a lot, and then what they did in the transfer portal coming in also.
Well, and I think a powerful statement about early is the players he kept.
Mm-hmm.
Because, if they had not made a good hire there, all of those guys had gone in the portal and where they could leave.
It was at a teetering point for the future of Aggie baseball.
It was. I totally agree. And and I was there at the press conference when they introduced him, and all those players sitting up there on that front row, I was sitting about 2 rows behind them, and you could feel the excitement in the room about those players, about the coach. And when you get players that feel that way, they're going to go out there themselves. Not only are they going to try to put their name in the record books, they're going to try to put his name in the record book.
Matt,
I'm very excited about it.
Yeah. I went out in the fall, obviously watched them practice and play a bunch, and people forget they blasted Houston and Houston Christian in those fall games without Jace, without Schott, without Prager, without Grahovic, and they ran off and left them. Like this team has got a chance, man. If they hit all their marks,
I mean, this team, this one's simple. You look at how are we gonna? What's our pitching staff going to look like? How good are they going to be? And the sky's literally the limit. You've got a basically murderer's row in there with bats.
I'm not worried about the pitching staff. The back of the bullpen is just, and I'm not saying we don't have the guys. I just got to, I don't know who it is, right?
That's a question mark.
Every time 53 ran out there for the last 2 years, the game was over.
It's how good are they going to be? And again, we've got the talent there. I'm not worried about who the pitchers are that we have. I just think that is how are they going to play. But by the way, Kendall Rogers, and had no idea. I was sitting there, apparently he's like best friends with my sister and her husband. Had no idea. And then I'm like, so hey, I ended up starting. It's like at the end of the search last year, I kept calling my sister, asking her questions. She goes, I don't know. I don't pay attention. I don't care about any of that. I was like, well, ask your friend. Give me the information. I want to know who our next coach is going to be. Right? And I know Bronny, and wasn't bothering you about it. So, but no, hey, did anybody else get worried that we're number one? Because it's uncharted territory for us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's uncharted territory. Do we get nervous? I've had a lot of people tell me.
It's like pulling the hat back activates the BAS for him. Like he pulls it back and he leans in. He's like,
I'm simply posing a question. I'm not saying that I'm that way.
You are.
I'm not saying that I'm that way, but like that. I mean, that number one ranking, it puts that gigantic, big old target on your back.
We'd have been number 2. We'd had a target on our back. Everybody knows what this team is. Everybody in the conference, everybody in the country knows what Texas A&M baseball is this year.
Is there a player? We'll go quickly. Got about a minute and a half left. a player maybe that you're most excited to see? And I'll open it up to the entire roster, but I'm kind of thinking maybe a guy looking to see to take the next step or get more healthy, whatever it is.
Or one of the new guys.
Pick one.
Yeah. Kash.
Cash?
Yeah.
He looked pretty good, man. He can play left field, and he played first base his entire career.
I was going to say, he's not. So
they're putting him in left field, so your outfield's going to go Gavin Cash, Jace Lavalette, Caden Sorrell, all left-handed hitters with big-time power.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
Maybe he's Big 12 Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year a couple years ago.
Adding another power bat right in the center of that is going to be pretty legit.
Royce?
Well, to me, I'm excited. I'm going to do a general deal. I'm just excited to see the pitching staff, particularly see how the bullpen comes together. Because you're talking about, we had that guy that you didn't worry about it, and I think somebody's going to step up.
Chris Cortez was really good too. Chris Cortez was outstanding.
Absolutely. Yeah. And but I'm anxious to see how that comes together because you need the long closers and the short ones, and I'm just very interested to see how Early does with his pitching staff, and particularly from the standpoint of the relievers.
Right.
I want it for me, and I really want it for him. The dude, like you say, he's passed up $1.3 million to come back to A&M to pitch. I want Prager to take another step so he goes back and his signing bonus is even bigger.
Yep.
And he goes into the major leagues and is that dude.
Listen to this. Caden Sorrell. I think he is due for a monster season. We're out of time.
Yeah.
We'll be right back here tomorrow morning. Caden Sorrell, big name to watch for. We'll talk more Aggie baseball and all Aggie sports tomorrow morning. This is TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers.